Today I'm going to be talking about knife safety, specifically knife safety in the kitchen. I wanted to go over multiple different points on this subject and pretty much try to do my best to cover as much of the subject as absolutely possible. So I'm going to do my best. If there's anything I miss, I apologize in advance. Just mention it in the comments and maybe I can do another video for that. But for this, I wanted to let you know in advance, what the topics are going to be that I want to be discussing today. So you'll know, and this is in no particular order. We're going to be discussing, safety in the kitchen overall, as well as what you're going to need in the event you get cut or hurt. So, what to have in the way of a first aid kit or first aid supplies. Also, we're going to be discussing safety in the design of the knife itself, how knives are designed and what makes them dangerous or safe, and also safety in handling that knife. So we want to take care of all of those issues. We have safety in cleaning, things like don't put the knife in a soapy sink full of water, because then you got to reach in there and hopefully not get cut while you find it. So be careful about that. We're going to talk about safe ways to clean knives. Also, how to pass a knife between people. How do you hand a knife to someone else? What's the right way, the wrong way, the safe way, the dangers, so forth and so on. And also, we're going to discuss keeping your knife sharp, because a dull knife is a dangerous knife. And in a little bit, we're going to discuss why that is. I'm going to discuss what a hone is and what a sharpening stone is, the difference between the two, and basically how to use them. Also, we're going to be discussing how to carry knives safely. Carrying knives and storing knives is also very important. You want to do it in a way that, number one, you don't want to reach into a drawer and get cut trying to get the right knife. You also don't want to be transporting a knife and the knife get broken or someone get injured because it wasn't transported properly. The first thing that I think I really need to mention in this discussion is the fact that the kitchen's a dangerous place. If you're going to be in the kitchen, you're going to get cut. You're going to get burned. You're going to have certain injuries from time to time. Generally, they're minor, as a general rule. Sometimes they can be severe. But the kitchen's a dangerous place, so it's not a good hangout for young children that are unsupervised. If it's supervised, it's another thing, because we have to teach our kids how to cook. But we want it to be safe. We want it to be careful. All right, so let's be careful in the way we think, methodical, and very thoughtful in how we do things in the kitchen. Regarding safety in the kitchen, I'm going to mention, look, boiling water. I have permanent marks on me. This part of my arm remains this color of brown even when the rest of me turns this lily white color, okay? So that's from second degree burns, and then there's white patches in the middle that never change color that are the third degree burn areas. So I got burned badly as a kid from boiling water in the kitchen. All right, I won't go into the details, but it happens. And since then, I've been burned, okay? It was about a year ago. Let's see, where is it? Here we go. I have a patch on this arm right here. It's a little dark patch. And this spot is a second degree burn. It wasn't a bad one. I jerked my arm back pretty quick. But I was reaching to open the lid on the back burner, and I didn't see a jet of steam coming from a pot on the front burner. That thin jet of steam burned that one spot on my arm. So simple little things like that that you just don't expect. They happen. All right, sometimes when you're cutting food, you get cut. You cut yourself. It happens, people. And it's better to be prepared for it. Now, something I want to mention, dull knife versus sharp knife. Dull knives are dangerous. Dull knives send people to the hospital. Now, you might be thinking, now hang on. If my knife is really sharp, it's more likely to cut me. Well, reasonable thinking would kind of suggest that on the offset. However, when you really think about it, you want your knife to be able to cut smooth and easy. If it doesn't, then you've got problems, because then you're having to force your knife through the food, and with all that extra force behind the knife, when it finally goes free, sometimes it can go ballistic. And if it's traveling in the wrong direction, the next thing you know, you've cut off one of your fingers or stabbed your hand, or worse. And so you don't want a dull knife because you have to fight it. A very sharp knife will slide through food easily. You don't ever fight it. There's not that much pressure behind it, and it's always under control. So sharp knives safe, dull knives send people to the emergency room. Sharp knives will cut you, but that's a Band-Aid issue. Now, on the Band-Aid issue, you need a first aid kit in the kitchen, okay? Well, I should just say you need a first aid kit at home, all right? Everybody needs to occasionally get a Band-Aid or some first aid cream or burn cream or sting relief from a wasp or whatever that stung you, or who knows what else. You need a first aid kit. Invest a little money, get you a first aid kit, and the next thing is, once a year, open that kit up and make sure all of the things like your antibiotic and pain relief ointments, for cuts and burns and things, make sure those are all up to date. I mean, you don't want to reach in there and get an ointment that you need for a cut and find out that it's 3 or 4 years out of date and not any good. That's not any good for you. So make sure they're always up to date, and keep that stuff handy and available at all times. Doesn't matter how much experience you have, from time to time you're going to get cut. It's usually just a small mistake, a little cut, but still it's a cut. Be prepared. So there you have it. That is the beginning of our discussion on this, and I've got a lot more to show you here and a lot more to discuss. But that pretty much covers the fact that A, the kitchen's a dangerous place. Don't leave kids unsupervised. Make sure you have a first aid kit. Make sure your knives are sharp. Never use a dull knife. And be careful in your handling practices. And that's what all of this is about. This whole video is about practices and techniques about the right way to handle knives so you don't get hurt. The next thing I wanted to talk about was safety and design. The design of the knife itself, the way it's built. Believe it or not, folks, cheap knives can be dangerous. If the handle becomes detached when you're using the knife, that's pretty dangerous. You don't want something like that happening. Let me show you what I'm talking about when I'm talking about design. You're going to want to look for a knife. If you're looking for an inexpensive one, maybe that has a wood handle, you'll want to see what they call the tang of the knife, which is the part that goes inside the handle from the blade. You want to see the tang go all the way through the handle. If it goes all the way down to the bottom like you're seeing here, that is a knife that has a full tang, and you'll see them frequently riveted all the way down. That's a strong design that usually holds up very well. This one has been around since I was a boy, okay, so it has held up over the years and it's proven itself. It's lost about half of its blade to sharpening, okay, so it's been around for a while. Now, one that is a little less sturdy is what they call a half tang, and that's this one. Now, this partial tang doesn't go all the way down, and so when you put stress against the blade, it's more likely to break free or to split the wood and then come loose at the rivets. That's the problem when you use a knife that doesn't have a full tang but only has a partial one. So you can see how the metal comes down in this only part of the way, making this a little less sturdy, maybe a little less safe knife. I think the brand is all right. They seem to hold up well, but it's just not as good of a build. So consider this when you're buying. Some knives, you can't see the tang. They're like this. They have a plastic handle, or maybe a what's called paca wood handle. Some of my knives have paca wood, and that's where they've taken wood and under high pressure and heat injected the wood with plastic, so they combine two materials. The plastic makes the wood impervious to everything, and the wood gives fiber and strength to the plastic, and they seem to work well together. So that's a neat way of doing a handle that's strong. Knives that are built like this need what's called a bolster, okay? And that's this little wrap right here. It's this metal part that meets the handle. And that's a good sign. It's a sign of a good design that's sturdy. The more expensive knives that you find on the market, the ones that are Japanese made, or commercial knives like this one, or knives that you find that are German made, also Swiss made, you will often see a bolster on that knife, and it's a good sign that you've got good quality, okay? Another thing is you can look at the manufacturer to find out how deep the tang goes and how it's attached. Generally, if you're buying good quality knives, you don't have to worry about that because they're built very well. They have a reputation for a reason. It's because they were built the right way and they're safe to use. All right, so construction of the knife really matters. Cheap knives can be dangerous. You want a knife of quality, something that's going to hold up. A knife, if you look at it this way, a knife should be an investment. You buy a really good one, you don't ever buy knives ever again. That's the real trick there. So even if you're buying one at a time, which I recommend, that way you get exactly what you want. Sometimes different brands mix well, and that's what I've done. Consider this. Our next one is going to be safety in handling. How do you safely handle that knife? Let's get some knives over here and talk about that. Come on. The way we handle these knives makes a difference, folks. Now, if you'll notice the way I have them set out here, the blades, they're facing away from me. And that's so if I accidentally bump a knife, I'm less likely to get cut. If these were turned the other way, that would have cut me, all right? So I don't want that. I want to keep that turned away from me. I've actually cut myself that way once. So be careful. Keep the knives faced away from you. That edge should be very sharp, and if it is sharp, that makes it something you need to be very respectful of. Something I want to mention, certain knives, and this is a very rare thing, but certain brands of knives, believe it or not, are actually handed. This knife is handed. This is a right hand hewn knife. A lot of people don't know that they were built this way. Let me show you something. The shape of the handle, the way it is shaped, is different than the way a lot of other knives are shaped. See how it is rounded here, but it comes to a crease here, a high point? That's not by mistake, that's by design, and that's to fit where your fingers wrap around so you get a better grip. The other thing is if you'll notice, they're offset. This handle is offset from the blade. It's moved over that direction, so there's less meat on this side, and that allows you to get the knife down flat and make good flat low cuts. Okay, and very helpful. I've used that feature and it's been very nice to have. I love these hewn knives for that. And I understand, this is not paid, no paid promotion. I'm simply saying that I like the product that I purchased. They really work out good. Also, commercial knives are very nice to have. Safety in handling when you're holding and handling a knife. Some knives you see have this right here, and it can be very nice to have because part of your bolster comes down right here on a lot of German knives. So there'll be kind of a square block right in this spot, and that keeps your finger from actually getting down onto where there could be a sharp edge. Now the pinch method puts your finger close to that edge, so you never want to get it up there like that. You always want to keep your hand tight against the grip itself and pinch with your thumb and first finger on that blade. So the way I'm holding this knife right now is what most professional cooking schools are teaching their chefs, all right? And this is because you get a much, much better control over the knife itself. The problem with cutting with a knife that has a wide blade, a blade that's wide this way, the thing sometimes, if you're holding it like this, sometimes it wants to turn in your hand. And if you've ever been making a difficult cut and bam, that happened, you know what I'm talking about. Doing this pinch method simply eliminates that issue altogether, okay? It does really give you better control of the blade, and once you get used to it, you will go to it automatically and it will feel comfortable to you. So it's something you want to try practicing. Doesn't work on all knives. Some knives are not safe to do that with. I can pinch this, but it puts this finger really close to the back edge of that blade, which is really, really sharp. So if I'm going to pinch this blade, I have to pull all of my fingers back, and that's a very dangerous thing to do. Some cutting techniques require this, but it's stuff that is for advanced chefs, and I recommend you avoid it. This is for doing detailed paring and shaping of fruits and vegetables and things like that into flours and stuff. We rarely ever use that. A knife like this, because you don't have as wide of a blade, you don't get as much torque against the blade, and you're a little easier holding it by the handle. It can still turn. Be careful, you still have that possibility. So keep a very firm grip on your knife. When you're making cuts, there's a variety of cuts that we make. Sometimes we make slicing cuts like this, whether they be backwards or forwards. That's a slice. Sometimes we chop. Okay? Sometimes we just rock down on it. All right? Sometimes we rock back and forth. And all of these techniques are viable, good techniques. But you have to remember, safety needs to be considered when doing these techniques. For instance, if you're going to cut sideways, you always cut with the edge pointed away from you or traveling away from you. If I'm right-handed and I'm making a sideways cut and my blade is facing this way, it's backward, it's wrong, because the knife can come back my direction and cut me. But if it's faced this way and it comes back towards me, it is the back of the knife that will not cut me. All right? So you want the knife right-handed facing away from you this way, left-handed facing away from you this way. All right? Make sure that you get that right. Okay? So you're making sideways cuts. It's absolutely necessary to do it that way. Cutting like this is referred to in the industry, in the food industry, as the suicide cut, because so many people have cut their bowels open and gone to the hospital with their intestines spilling out onto the floor. You don't want that happening to you, okay? So always make that cut with that blade face away. And it needs to be mentioned in all of this, folks, if there's children involved and there's not adult supervision, those adults are negligent. You need adult supervision wherever knives or fire are involved. And in the kitchen, guess what? You got both involved. So, adults in the kitchen with the kids, let's do it the right way. So now we've seen how we do safe handling with the knives. And there's maybe more to it than that. It's picked up through style and technique. All right, so you want to learn to do the right techniques the right way and to be careful with your blades. All right, careful and thoughtful. Let's talk about safety in cleaning our knife, okay? When it comes to a dirty knife, the first thing I have to say is never, never, never leave a knife dirty. Clean it immediately after use. I mean, before you move to the next step of what you're doing, clean that knife off, all right? Clean it, dry it, so it's ready to go for the next task. These are the most used tool in the kitchen. You need them clean and ready at all times. And if the food gets gunked up on them, they get hard to clean. You can cut yourself when you've got too much gunked up food on there. So don't allow that to happen. Also, never place a knife in the sink. You might be saying, but chef, how do I wash if it's not in the sink? Hey guys, it's simple. When you're washing your knives, take them to the sink. Take your sponge loaded with soap. Use this side to clean the knife well, okay? Then turn it around and use the sponge side. Now if you'll notice, my fingers are nowhere near that sharp edge. No, they're back here where the dull part of the knife is, the back of the knife, okay? And that's the way we safely clean with our sponge. Never getting up there, never wrapping the sponge this way, and certainly never this way. Okay, so caution when cleaning your blades, all right? Do it like this. Then, when you time to clean the handle and you've rinsed off the blade so it's not slick from detergent or soap. Wash your blade, rinse it, and then take the blade by the back and use your sponge to clean your handle, all right? Cleaning it thoroughly and safely. Then wipe over it with the sponge side so that you get any excess of grease. You don't want that handle to be slick. It could be dangerous if it's greasy and slick. So always make sure that the knife comes out clean and dry. So after you've cleaned it, wash it, rinse it, and dry it off, and then it's ready to be put up. Let's mention knife storage. When you're going to store your knives, never store them in never do that, okay? Don't have a bucket or a bin or anything that you put your knives in. The same way, do not put them down in a drawer. Don't have them all jumbled up. Folks, the safest ways to store a knife is either in a block that's designed to hold them, or in a tray that has slots that will hold the knife like this with the edge face down into the slot, or use a magnet on a wall. Now, that's the method I like to use because it leaves them open, easy to grab, easy to store, and I like my magnet. But any of these methods you need to look at for proper storage. If you have your knives improperly stored, let's say I have them all in here. Let me give you an example. Let us say for a moment I have all my knives down in here. Now I need to get to this knife. There's just one problem. I have to reach my hand down into this where these sharp edges are in order to pull this out. That is very, very dangerous. We don't want that scenario. Don't have the scenario where all of your knives are together in any one spot, because you can cut yourself trying to get to one of them. All right? I'm going to safely take these back out. See, I can't safely get to that one until I've removed these. So be smart about your knife storage, all right? How you store them equals safety, okay? We need now to discuss how to safely pass a knife from one person to another. You don't just hand it to them. That's dangerous, because then they're stuck having to grab the blade to take it, and they could get cut. We want to pass the knife in a safe way. The best way, if you're standing near a counter or a butcher block, is to simply take the knife and lay it down with the edge facing away from the person you wish to hand it to. Just like so. That way, the next person to pick that knife up can grab that knife, do so safely, and there is no danger in the pass. However, sometimes you're not in the position where you can set the knife down. If this is the case, the person passing the knife to another person, let us say person A has the knife. They need to take it from the back of the blade, back here, and hold the knife with the handle towards the person they're wishing to pass it to. That person then can take that handle and safely remove it from that person's hand without hurting them or the person receiving the knife getting in danger as well. So that's your safe passing technique. When carrying a knife from one point to another in a kitchen, let's say you're going across a large kitchen, don't carry the knife in front of you like this. Do not carry the knife like this. Both ways are dangerous. One's dangerous to others. The second is dangerous to yourself. Carry the knife like you're holding it to cut, like this, and carry it with the blade face up above your head, letting people know that you're coming through the room with a sharp knife so they can get out of your way. It's the same way if you've got kind of boiling water, you want to let people know you're coming through. When you've got something sharp and you're going to come through a kitchen, let folks know. You don't want somebody spinning around quickly and getting accidentally cut or stabbed. That would be bad. All right? Transferring the knife is a thing that we need to be careful about. Part of knife safety, as I've mentioned before, is sharpness. The blade has to be sharp. Sometimes the blade is sharp, but it acts like it's dull. All right? Now this is a quirky thing about knives and something that needs to be mentioned. Knives, you know, they're sharp. That fine edge, though, gets so thin when they're really sharp that it bends over easily. In other words, it curls this way or it curls this way, and then the knife doesn't perform the right way. Basically, if you looked down the edge of the knife, and let's say my fingertips are the very point of the knife, that knife gets bent like this or like this. So you can see a little bend there instead of being straight. That's where your hone steel comes into play. The knife isn't dull, it simply needs that bent edge to be brought straight up so that it cuts right. So what we do is we use what's called a honing steel. Now, hone steel, you've seen Chef Ramsay, he'll grab that knife and just like this. Scares the living hell out of me because he has that blade facing towards him. Now he'll say, oh no, that's the reason that bolster's there, is to keep it from coming back and cutting your hand. But you know what? Cutting towards yourself or moving a knife towards yourself, in my book, is just not safe. So I like to do it with the edge facing away from me. One on bottom, one on top. And what I'm doing is I'm dragging the knife across that hone steel. And I'm not trying to sharpen the knife. I'm simply trying to correct the curl deficiency in the edge. So when I go back and forth from side to side, what this does is it pulls it into alignment regardless of which direction it's out of alignment. Needs to be mentioned. Some people test a knife for sharpness by dragging their fingers across it. The more resistance you get, the sharper the knife. This is very dangerous to do. There's other ways to test, but if you do that method, you need to understand something. You can feel, and it'll feel sharp one way, but you move your hand and it feels dull the other way. That means that blade is still curled over, and the way it feels sharp to is the side it's pointed towards. So if this edge felt sharp when I pulled my fingers this way, that means the edge still curls that way, all right? So I would then want to take my knife, which still curls one direction, and work one side of it several times, and then check again. And sometimes that will straighten that up for you. So that is something that does happen on your edges when they are sharp, but they're just out of alignment. You use that hone steel for that. It's an important tool. It can be overused, and if you overuse this, or if you're too aggressive with this, you can leave damage on the blade. It'll chip or notch or even leave little curves on the blade that you don't really want, and that's bad for it. I do have a full video on how to sharpen a knife, and I'm not going to show you how to sharpen a knife here, but I want to discuss it, the basic principles of it. The idea is you have a blade, and to make it sharper once it is dull is you have to remove metal from this side and from this side in order to make it sharp again. Some knives, certain brands of hewn knives, are only sharpened on one side. Be careful. If you have a single bevel knife, you only need to sharpen one side of it. Never change a single bevel knife or try to double edge it unless you have a professional do it. Most of them aren't designed for it. And if you have, let's say, a hollow ground knife that's single bevel, it's very hard to change that single to a double. So be careful on that. Now, sharpening, we drag the edge of the knife at an appropriate angle across a coarse or abrasive surface. Now, in this case, I'm using a sharpening stone that has diamonds embedded in it. Now, I can push that edge across there like this, or like this, and of course, I mentioned I'm moving it toward myself, but this is for the purpose of demonstration. So we move that edge across there like this. Normally, I would turn the knife over and go back across the other way. This is one way of doing it. You can backstroke it this way, but I find it is not as effective, okay? So use that method. And the method where you push your knife across it this way, I don't think that really works very well either. The best and sharpest knives I've ever had were pushing the blade directly into the coarse surface and doing so at the appropriate angle. And the angle is going to vary for different knives, okay? So you want to be careful about that. But please keep a sharpening stone Always keep a honed steel because these are essential to a safe knife. Okay, safe knife use includes these tools. Have them, okay? If you don't have them, go and buy them, all right? Keep them sharp. If you're sharp, you're safe. The next thing I wanted to discuss with you is carrying knives. How do you transport your knives from one kitchen to another, from one place to another, safely? Some knives, when you purchase them, will come with a cover. If your knife comes with a plastic cover, don't throw it away. Keep it. Even though you think you may not need it, you may someday want to use it. So just throw it in a drawer and have it available. So that way, if you need to take your knives and put them into that guard to carry them, to transport them, you have a safe way of transporting your knife where the edge is not exposed. This is very smart, okay? Do yourself that favor and keep these anytime you get one with your knife. Keep your covers. They make a difference. Something else, if you don't have a cover, you can do a makeshift cover. You can do that with a thick towel. I have a hand towel here. And we're going to take this hand towel and turn it into a knife cover so we can transport a knife. Let's take a look at how we do that. When transporting a knife and you don't have a cover and you're going to use a towel, take a nice sharp one here, good big knife. Okay, I want to take my towel and place my knife right on that so that the point is near the center of the towel, all right? And I want to take this towel and I'm going to fold it over like so. I'm going to fold it this way and then we're just going to simply roll it, all right? This is a great way of doing a towel wrap, a towel wrap for a knife. From here, place the knife in a bag and carry it, but be very gentle because if something hits the back of this, the knife point is going to come right out the tip and it's going to be dangerous again. So this is a makeshift way of carrying the knife as safe as you can carry it. All right, so do this only in an extreme emergency. They also make knife carrying cases. They unroll just like this and they have slots that the knives sit in. It's a wonderful thing. If you plan to travel with your knives a lot, it's advised, okay? Chefs will commonly use those. Most home cooks don't even know they exist, okay? So that is how you're going to transport those knives to be good and safe. Well, I think that's pretty much all I had to say about knife safety. If I missed anything, I apologize, and if I did so, then please mention that in the comments. If you have any questions or anything, put that down in the comments. And folks, if this is the first time you've seen Texas Cooking Today, my show is about cooking tutorials. So the whole thing is chock full of tutorials. There's also a bunch of recipes there that are really good. So please give it a try. You might like it. Next, for those who are my subscribers, folks, thank you very much. I really appreciate you. You're the backbone of Texas Cooking Today. And to my regular viewers, you're very, very appreciated. Folks, thank you very much. If you would, please share this video and drop something down in the comments box. That's always nice. I like to see that. Little thumbs ups. And thank you very much for watching. Folks, please have a good day. Bye-bye.